Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 3 finale of Jack Ryan. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. You hope that everything's going to work out, but things are still one of those things of this is one of those political thriller, spy thriller, tense episodes where it's not like necessarily action packed or whatever, but it's just the fact is that it's just, you're how is this all going to play out? Because once again, kind of just like last episode, the entire squad is broken up doing different things. Because I was curious what Jack's play was. Basically, he's on the polar opposite side of Luca, whereas Luca is trying to handle things on the Fearless, on the Russia side of things. Jack is on the ship that's going to be interacting with the Fearless that could be the instigator for popping this whole potential large-scale war off. So Jack's trying to get on the ship, but even when Wright couldn't get him permission to get on that ship to try and convince him not to, so the guy that's in there is like, yo, how badly need to go on that ship? And Ryan's like, it's life or death. He's like, cool. Buckle the seatbelt, threw him out. It's like, cool. Because this ship is legally bound to help anyone they find overboard. I guess I did not know that was a thing. But it's yeah, so Jack got on the ship one way or another. Obviously, the captain of the ship wasn't too happy about it because he's like, I see through the BS that you did. He's like, you're lucky I didn't leave you out there just to drown if I wasn't morally and I guess even from his job perspective obligated to pick you up out of the water. So, but Jack's trying to tell him the intelligence that he's been given, but it's still a thing. And that's the interest. I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's a complicated thing, that it is orders are orders. And for him, it's I have my orders because my job is to protect countless lives, the lives of the people on the ship, but also American lives. That's what is asked upon me, and you are putting lives at risk, compromising all of this. But it's what makes you think I would put lives at risk? So Jack is trying to convince him. At the same time, you have Luca on the Fearless, and now Luca is, trying to get to. Last episode, I think I called him Antonov. It's Antonov, but I think I was calling him Antitov or something. I was butchering his name, but it's Anatov. And I was saying Anatov is Antonov. I butchered the name regardless. It's kind of irrelevant, but still. Luca, I guess, was going to plan just to kill the guy, but I'm I don't know if that would have really worked. I mean, for him, once again, he's willing to sacrifice himself, but he knew, right, I'm here in this room, there's a guy in the room with him, and it's if I try to kill you, this guy would probably kill me before I have a chance to really kill you, so I'm going to put the gun down, or maybe he was going to try and threaten, Antonov to back down, because they ultimately do have their conversation, which I thought was so interesting, because it's oh, do you remember me? He's oh, I'm surprised you remember me, because he's I remember all those years ago you gave me an order and you told me don't worry about it, you'll forget. And he's well, and he's yes, you said you refused to. And he was yeah, I can't believe you remember that, because you were so steadfast in your orders, but I didn't believe in that, and I refused those orders to the very end. But so for him, it's a thing of you're the traitor because you chose to forget. But for Luca, it's no, you're Luca's kind of basically look at him you're stupid. Could you think I've ever forgotten? No, those ghosts still haunt me. My decisions that day still haunt me. It is why I am here right now, making the choices I am right now to make up for the past mistakes that I have made. I've made a lot, and the Solkov situation back then is probably one of his biggest, because it triggered so much down the line. But either way, I mean, once again, that's why we are here where we are right now, is because of those decisions made all those years ago. And he calls Antonov the actual traitor. And I even love the whole conversation of okay, you're betting all this on if Alexei wins. If Alexei is able to usurp and do his coup thing and end up becoming president. But what if you kill me and Alexei doesn't become president? There'll be no redemption for you. There'll be no redeeming yourself. And, Luca's I know that situation firsthand to be in. He's it's a tricky situation, isn't it? He's I know, because I was in that situation myself. But Antonov, you could tell it was racing through his mind, but for him, it's because he was even talking about like you let Peter like feed that poison to you about all of this, you know? And so because Antonov believes like both of them are obviously driven by the situation that played out all those years ago. And once again, maybe if Luca had made a decision all those years ago, maybe who knows how different things would be present day. But it is that conversation yet again of following orders. Even if you don't agree with them, you still have to follow orders. That's the chain of command. And it's just like, you know, and that ends up being a large conversation. I mean, that's kind of been this entire season all across. That's been the overarching theme of there being orders that you don't agree with because you know what's right. You know, and you feel in your gut, you trust yourself and believe that this is right. And, you know, I mean, that's why Luca is here right now, because he believes he made the wrong decision back then, just simply following orders. But, you know, you could, like I said, you could see it in Antonov's head, like he's racing through it, but he's still like, no, I steadfast believe in this because, like, yes, there might be some sacrifices that need to be made. I'm willing to sacrifice myself, you know, to pop off all of this stuff because in the end, it's going to make our country stronger. It's for the betterment of the entire country. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Alexei can peddle that BS, but at the end of the day, for him, it's not even about that. It is about the power he's going to get. Maybe for Peter, he is someone who did legitimately believe that in the long run, this will serve a greater cause for making our country stronger. I think maybe Alexei's peddling all that because he does believe it himself. But, you know, once again, it's that conversation between a soldier and a politician. But either way, so Luca's locked up and he's trying to talk to the guard out front, Kagansky. And it's like, you are the executive officer. He has you guarding me because you in your gut know. Because he had this really interesting conversation where he's like, right, do you remember the wall? And he's like, no. It's like, well, my dad didn't remember the SARS. He's like, the fact is, the thing is, Russia always, he's like, we always talk about like not forgetting, but we always kind of forget, like, you know, what came before, essentially. We always kind of like, we weren't there to experience, and even if we were, maybe we're so young, but the fact is, we don't essentially don't learn from our mistakes. And he's like, we don't build anything. All we do is build lies based on, you know, and I thought that was such an interesting perspective that Luca kind of put out there. But it's like, right, you're the only person on this ship that can question, Antonov's, and that's why he has you guarding me down here below deck, so you're not up there trying to stop him. Once again, like just that beautiful parallel of just like the clock race, both racing against time as Jack's trying to convince the captain of the ship he's on, like, hey, please don't do this. I'm bringing you this intelligence. It's like, well, we have an officer we have someone we're working with over there, and it's like, who is it? It's like Russian intelligence. Well, have you been in contact with them? No, not right now. And it's like Jack's in that situation. I'm like, I can't, like, I understand where he's coming from. I'm still going to push as much as I can, but there's only so far I can go because this man has his orders, especially when the White House is calling him, telling him like, right, you need to get prepared for this. Like, oh, they're opening up their weapons. You need to do the same. And Wright's there in the room trying to say like, hey, I'm trying to steer us away from that, try and buy as much time. Like, I believe this is exactly what Russia wants us to do. But it's like, well, once again, it's like, are we willing to take this gamble of we're all going to, like either if we take this gamble, they could end up shooting and destroying us, and that could be a whole thing in itself. At the same time this is all going down, you have Greer, Mike, and Alina trying to work their gamble, which I love Mike's commentary of like, is this, you know, it's like, if I could give my professional opinion, it's like, well, if you're going to give it, like, can I kind of say no? It's like, is this kind of like the right call? And he's like, yeah, we have to do whatever it takes, you know, whatever it goes. He's like, well, I'm butchering it, but Mike was like, oh, does it involve getting super murdered in Moscow? Is that really what it calls for? So we have to do whatever it calls for. And that was the whole pop off. So we have Greer going on his way and Alina, Mike going their way. So at the same time that's all happening, Alexei's making his move. Like, the fact is, he walked in a room, he's looking around, I'm like, oh, you don't even have the job yet, you're already like, but you're salivating, you're there touching the chair, like, I feel it, oh, this is so amazing, this is so good. And because later on when the president found out about what he was up to, I was like, and he's chastising you like, right, I'm still the one in command. Like, obviously I respect your decision as the new Minister of Defense, but do not try and go around me. My orders are the ones that happen. I'm the one that gets to make these decisions. So, but to me, I was like, okay, were you, I mean, I guess he knew that was a possibility. Maybe he wasn't counting on the president finding out about the Fearless stuff before things popped off. But it's like the president's like, yo, call that off. And I guess all he had to do was get on the phone and be like, yeah, I'm calling that off. But then like he has this guy on board, Antonov, who knows like, okay, know what I'm saying, and kind of go through with it anyway. Because I was like, how are you, because that was my big question, like, how are you going to like usurp the president of Russia? Like, were you just going to I was like, were you going to have him killed? Were you just going to like make him like look weak? It seems like I kind of got it on that front, but not to the right people. I thought like he was going to do that to the people, make the people of Russia go against him. But it's like, no, specifically high ranking like military people, because he gathered everyone in the room and he's talking about what Russia once was. He talks about what his father did, or no, it was his grandfather. And he's like, the fact is we were once strong. We were once again and this is a metaphor I think that was used earlier in the season. But it's like, right, we were what every country in the world feared. We were the monster underneath the bed that everyone was scared of. And we are going to be that country again. So who in here agrees with getting rid of, like, you know, removing the president from it? And it's like, yes, the fact of the matter is, we let politicians and oligarchs be the ones that kind of lead our country, and we're not the strong, fear country we once were, and that allows the world to kind of push us around. So when the time comes, he's like, right, who's with me? And a lot of people in that room, hands up. And I love there's that one guy being like looking around. I see that look on his face like, all right, I see you fucking traitors for who you are. And I wonder, because I wonder in a situation like that, because even Alexei didn't look ecstatic. It was almost kind of like, okay, I got a lot of support. But I'm curious, does he need a unanimous decision in that? Because he wasn't acting like, oh, I got the presidency already. Maybe he was going to wait for stuff to pop off. And then he's like, president, I'm taking the position. I'm the new president of Russia now. Or did he need it? Because at least from what we saw, there's at least one guy that was like, all right, I see you traitors for who you are. So that's when I'm curious, like, did he need a unanimous decision? Because it didn't seem like he was acting like president, but maybe it hadn't gone into motion yet. But either way, like, Alexei was making his moves. So later on, Greer shows up asking for Alexei and wants to talk to him. And I love that he's like, all right, my government's willing to give you an out. You get to like disappear before all this kind of goes wrong, because your plan will fail. And so do you want a new home in New York or Miami? Or do you want to spend your time in a prison cell in Siberia? But Alexei's it's like, no, you're blowing hot air. Like the fact that, because he's like, oh, my government will trade from, because he knew that this was a gamble, but he was willing to, Greer was willing to take this gamble. As he was talking with Mike, he's like, oh, come on, you love this. He's like, yeah, he even admitted to Mike, he's like, yeah, I do love this. So I don't think Greer was serious about the offer. He was just doing that because he needed to give Mike and Alina enough time. While he's got Alexei's attention, they obviously use Madame Popov to get to the president to talk to him. And so Alina's like, yes, my father and Alexei were responsible for Dmitry Popov's death. And the fact of the matter is they're goading this whole situation. So like she's trying to make the situation in the Czech Republic better, kind of have like some of your forces pull back a little bit, but also like Mike there saying like, right, the U.S., we're all both being tempted into this situation. Oh God, there was that quote from Thomas Jefferson he gave that I was like, oh, that's so good. Where he was basically like, we have our duty today. Basically, we are coming together as like a friends, but also brave enemies or something. I'm butchering it, but it was such a dope quote that I was like, oh, that's sick. So, I think that's what my biggest question too was like, would Alina publicize the whole thing about her dad? And maybe with this, it will go public, or maybe it's just kind of, I don't know, like how much, because I'm sure this will affect her presidency once it's kind of like publicly known. So I don't know if that's her being like, right, I want to at least be able to do stuff while I can as president to kind of stop all this stuff from popping off, but also, especially because I have a part to play in this, because not only am I the president of the Czech, but also realizing my father was a big orchestrator of all of this. So when the time came, the president of Russia is in the room, like, because he thanks her for like what she's done, and it's like her saying that her people are lucky to have her as a president. So he ends up leading. He's in that room, all the traitors, and you even see his boy who didn't side with Alexei being like, was like, Yeah, look at you now. He's looking around the room like, Leia, look at you, you cowards. That was an interesting, not coward, but it was traitor. That line from regardless of who's in power, it doesn't make you any less of a traitor. Essentially, is what Luca had said to Antonov. But either way, Alexei was being told like, "Hey, come this way. You know, the president wants to see you." And then some people are there, and it's like, "Oh yeah," he knows he's cornered. And what does he do? He tries to. I was like, "Oh, how's this going to play out?" Nope. Got shot and killed. They heard the shot. President wasn't even faced. He's like, cool. So now that that's settled, some of you are traitors. Some of you are not. How about we sit here and find out what's what? I was like, yeah. I was like, that's super dope. Because I mean, from what it's just a camera angle. A lot of the people we saw in that room, we saw quite a few hands go up, except for like one guy. I don't know his position, but he's like a director of something, some high ranking position. But I'm curious, like how many people in that room were there actually that we just didn't get to see camera wise that didn't side with him. So it might be even less of a unit, like the percentage of people that sided against Alexei might not be just the one person. I think we saw that one person, but we don't know if there were other people in that room. Maybe there's other people in that room now. Maybe he only got select people he knew would side with him in that room that kind of sway things. And maybe there's other people. I don't know. Everyone in that room looked pretty nervous except for the guy that sided with the current president. So, although while that's happened, like I said, we have our back and forths in the situation with Jack and his circumstances and Luca and his. And Luca was able to get Kagansky to let him out. And it's like, right, I'm trying to take charge here. Let's back down, because it's like, right, let's confirm we have like orders to do this. And it's like, because he was trying to pop off first, but it's like, no. When do we fire first? Cause we are instigating stuff. It's like, also, we don't fire without orders. Obviously, the one who signed off on this is Alexei. Well, it's a moot point now because that has no validity to it, because that was on the condition that Alexei became president. And it kind of, I guess, even though he signed it while he was Minister of Defense, by being president now, it backdates it enough to be like, yeah, that's still in effect, and it legitimizes it. That was kind of my argument about before, like, how were you able to, make that go through? But that's the point of it. But it's like, right, it's kind of a moot point now because Alexei not only didn't get the job, he's also super dead. So how's this all going to play out? And Luca talks about, kind of what he ultimately plans to do. Is like, yeah, I'm going to serve my country. Like, that's what we're all here doing, trying to do what's best for our country. Because it also leads to that conversation about following orders that you don't believe, are wrong. Because that was the thing that Luca was trying to get across to Kagansky. It's like, I've made choices because I've followed orders. You don't want to be in a situation where you are haunted by the phrase, I had my orders and I followed them through, even though something told me it was wrong. Antonov is lying, so go do something about it. And here they are. So when the missile launched, I was like, yo, are we really doing this? And it was a defense situation. It was meant to eliminate the American side of like defense. It's like, hey, they fired their defensive measures. Now it's like, right, they're open for, like, now we're putting them in a situation where, like, that was them on the defensive. Now they're going to have no choice but to be on that offensive, because it's going to take them like 4 minutes to load up like those missiles for their defenses to be back up. And Jack is stressing, he's like, please don't do this, And ultimately, like, everyone had their guns out as Kagansky had his weapon drawn against Antonov. And I even love the parallels of like, hey, I'm really ready to do this. Whereas Jack and, even the commander of the ship on the American side being like, are you willing to risk your life and the life of everyone on this ship for this? And Jack is like, yes, because that is what I signed up for. And you can tell that meant a lot from the captain. Like, if he's willing to stake that much in me, because this is that important. And luckily, all the people on the ship ended up lowering their guns, and Kagansky had Antonov arrested, and Luca ends up talking to Jack, and it's like, oh, it's good to hear your voice, Jack. It's like, okay, so are we going to war? And Luca's like, that depends on you guys. And so the president calls up and the captain of the ship is like, no, I don't believe there is a threat, sir. So everything de-escalates. Kagansky, like, they had the Fearless going home. There's a sigh of relief across the entire board. Everyone on the Fearless, everyone on the American ship, like, everyone is kind of like, whew, breathing a little sigh of relief because, like, okay, everything worked out. Everything's okay. Everything's good. We're all Gucci. So it all worked out in the end. So you're just kind of like, oh God. Like I said, it was just a very tense of like I said, the missiles firing. It's like, wait. No, there's no way you just did that. But it's like, okay, no, it's that situation of like, okay, we're running out of time. The fact of the matter is this still could go badly. So, but luckily it all worked out. Greer gets let go by the president, which the president's like, right, to make this clear, you were never here. He was like, out of respect, President, wouldn't be the first time I wasn't in Moscow. So they kind of go this, it's like, right, Alina and Mike meet up with him and they all go their separate way. I even love Mike. It's like, yeah, if you ever need anything, here are my services. She's like, I hope I never need them. And it's like, did you really just pitch her your business? Unfucking believable. It's like, can we go home now? So Mike is like, I'm tired. Like, this is too much stress. So that ends up happening. Wright is now the director of the CIA. It's like, right, because the president he's like, I made a mistake kind of trusting in Miller, but I learned from my mistakes. So now the president of Russia wants to talk to the president of the US. So because it's about fixing relations all across the board, obviously like with the Czech and Russia, but also between the yes, we were former enemies and now we're kind of allies right now under these circumstances. So building up better relationships in that regard. So all the while that ends up happening. And I do love the monologue because I was like, man, there's a bit of time left. We time skip a week later. And I'm like, it's Luke. I was like, oh boy. Because he had said that line to Antonov of like, yeah, my day will come when I have to pay for what I've done, but it will not be today. And I was like, oh boy. Like the fact is, I was like, is someone going to pop up and like kill him? Because it's like, it reminds me of season 1 where one of the guys, one of Suleiman's people, like the more techie guy, got away, but he got his at the very, very end of the season 1. So I was thinking it was going to be something like that, which seems to be the case. So I don't know whether it's a thing of Luca was about to be put to death or whether he's going to be sentenced. But for him, it's like, I love that monologue of like, Jack, you and I, basically we inherited stuff like this situation, like what we end up having to deal with what was trickled down from us from the older generation. Because he also said that dope line of, and then earlier in the episode, I'm keep jumping back, but I'm like, there's dialogue that I'm like, that's so good that it should be noted of like that why he was also when Luca was talking to Kagansky that old men give the orders and young men die. But it's like, yeah, we kind of inherited this situation and circumstances and basically like things will, and we did our jobs and we did them well. And even saying that what we are a part of will continue, things will kind of continue with or without us down this road. But we are always been better people than the institutions we serve because the institutions, they all serve. Like, once again, let's not mince words. The CIA has its dark spots. So does a lot of organizations around the world. Because that line about, like, oh, Russia has a tendency to forget that Luca was talking about. But Kagansky's like, yeah, I think every country kind of has that. Like, every country kind of, has a tendency to kind of forget their past and stuff like that in some regards. But in this case, he was saying this line of... there are no heroes in this profession, but on occasion there are good men. Because for him, it's like, I lived and kind of did stuff that I regret. I lived without honor because of some of the stuff I've done, but he's like, at the very least, I hope by doing what I've done, I can die with honor. And I thought that was beautiful. I was almost hoping like they could do something for Luca. Like I said, I don't know if that's him being put into death. Because even he accepted, he put on his coat, he's like, hey, I won't fight, I won't put up much of a fuss. Don't worry, whatever you need to do, I'm not fighting. I accepted it because I know that I was going to pay the price. And what that is, I don't know if like even the president can help with that or just because I guess like what he's done has fully come to the surface or what. I'm curious to see if that's just kind of like the end of Luca's story. It just feels like that's him dying, or maybe it's left up in the air, but it feels like they're pretty definitive that something he's probably going to die, because that is what this is. But at the same time that's happening, we had seen Greer and Jack get the stars, and obviously they walk past the wall of like all the CIA agents, stars representing all the CIA agents that have given their life, and so that's kind of the last shot, is them walking out of the building. So the conversation once again about not just following orders, not following orders that you don't really believe, that you have a feeling that, and because especially as that conversation's happening, we know with Luca's circumstances of what he decided to do, but we also have this trio right here of Wright, Greer, and Jack, all like not wanting, like all trying to do the right thing in the end, despite the orders they were given. So thought that was a really dope way to kind of end off the season. I mean, the show tends to be very conclusive in its endings. Like you have some, I mean, it usually ties everything up, because not leaving enough for you to be like, oh yeah, like this gives you a full idea what to fully expect. I mean, not unless you know the books enough to know, like, okay, there's this potential storyline that they could pull from and maybe modernize or adapt. Because I don't know enough about any Tom Clancy stuff. I do not know the books well enough to know if any of this is pulled from like any books, or this just kind of like it's the property name. We take some of the characters, we create our own scenarios. Like I don't fully know. But either way, the show is coming back for a 4th season. Obviously, I'm getting to this super late. I'm finishing this up. Like, obviously, it's just been sidetracked by life and other stuff. But yeah, I'm finally finishing this up. I was glimpsing at an article that was saying, like, I want to say they finished filming, like, what's it, March 26th or 27th? It is the 8th, I believe, at the time we're recording this. Yes, because these should be going up tomorrow if I'm able to, I should have plenty of time to get these uploaded tomorrow. But yes, I believe the 4th season's already done filming. Even if it's not done, I mean, it might be like obviously I think it might be in the post-production phase. Maybe if that article, like I said, it was an article I glimpsed at that said that. So I don't know how true that is. That's one article I glimpsed at that suggested that they are done filming. I don't know if there's going to be any if they're done, they're fully wrapped, or, pickups, or like having to reshoot some stuff, or not, I don't know if it's fully in the post-production phase or not. But obviously we will be getting this season a lot quicker. Obviously, season 2 to season 3 took a while because obviously COVID heavily impacted, especially considering the international level of the show. So I'm so curious, for one, to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into season 4, but also how long will it be? Because I don't know what the date alignment was for season 1 to season 2. Obviously I know it was 2018 to 2019, but I don't know date-wise. So, because I'm wondering, since this season dropped December, could we expect season 4 potentially dropping this year? But maybe, because I want to say season 2 dropped in, wasn't it October, maybe November, that season 2 ended up dropping in 2019. So maybe something along those lines, or maybe they'll just continue and pick up maybe sometime in December, just like season 3 was dropped. I don't know. We'll ultimately have to wait to see, but I'm very, very excited to see where season 4 ultimately ends up taking us. At least I know Greer's coming back. I know Mike is coming back. How much we'll get of Wright in season 4, I don't know. There was another character. I'll keep hush about it, but there was one other character. I caught something saying a certain character would be back in season 4 that we haven't seen since season 1, but I don't know how true that is, so that's why I don't want to put it out there, because I don't know whether or not that's going to be the case. So we'll see. But yeah, really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good